Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting for City of Lacombe Council on Monday, February the 27th. It is now 5:30 p.m. and I will call the meeting to order. A couple of housekeeping items before we do begin. As you can see, Councillor Ross is not here in person. He's joined us remotely, and we've checked, and I believe that he is online with us now. Thanks for joining us, Councillor Ross. And also, our acting CAO, Guy Lapointe. Thank you for being here as well, taking over duties for CAO Gowdy. Appreciate that. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the agenda? And while you're doing so, with respect to the consent agenda, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I would like to pull out the year in review and the data integrity project, please.
Thank you. Any others for consideration? So we'll move those items down to the bottom to be reviewed then. And with respect to the overall agenda. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Is it okay if I first move that we accept the consent agenda as amended?
Certainly. I believe that that is on your voting units now. Please go ahead and vote. No, that has been registered now. Very good. That's unanimous. Thank you. And one more time. Councillor Hibbs.
I don't have any agenda items to add, so I will move the agenda be adopted as amended, I guess, with the consent items.
Thank you. I see no one else. So we can go ahead and vote on that item as well. And that is unanimously in favor too. With respect to the year in review, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I just have a number of suggested amendments, and I wondered if you wanted me to go through it or just to pass that on.
I think we should go through them now so that council can consider them.
Okay. I'm suggesting that it's a little awkward. The message from the mayor, I thought the second, when it talks about the second paragraph, that the year in review encapsulates that trust. It refers to a trust that wasn't named previous in the paragraph. So I just wondered if the wording in that paragraph might want to be, it's just my opinion. Councillors are spelt with one L, and I think we typically spell councillors with two L's. LAPA is referred to in November, was it November? In the calendar part, and I think it should have that spelled out what LAPA stands for. Where did I? No, it's not November. Where did they refer to? Oh, LAPA is under January. Key council decisions, it says LAPA expansion project, and I think it should say Lacombe Athletic Park. Then further on, it talks about the heart that the DARP group brought to the downtown, and I think that should be a capitalized heart. Capitalized H because it's a specific heart. It's not just any old heart. Corporate services refers to something called GIS. I didn't know what it was off the hop, so I thought maybe that too should be spelled out what GIS is. Fire Prevention Week. I'm just going to go through what I wrote down because I'm not going to be able to find what pages they are on. Fire Prevention Week, the theme should maybe be in quotation marks or italicized. Fire won't wait when plan your escape, because it just sort of blends in, and I think there's an actual theme there. Under the Lacombe Police Service, there's highlights and it names the police members. I guess I'd rather they weren't named. We have a new community safety liaison person and she was not named. So I was curious why that isn't consistent throughout the document. But I apologize, I should have prefaced this with it's a beautiful document. And I'm loving the new pie. It's no longer a pie with all the chunks that showed the percentage of different things and how they were divvied it up. It's a beautiful document. These are just little picky Cora things.
Very good. So other than the naming of the officers, I expect that was done for a reason. I certainly don't have a problem with any of those updates, and certainly we can come up with, I'll open up my thesaurus and come up with a better word than encapsulate. Anyone else? That's one of the nice parts about having a document like this that does reflect on each and every one of us, for everyone to have input, but certainly a wonderful starting point and a few items here that to be improved on. And thank you for keeping track of all of those, Councillor Hoekstra. Someone's got to make one. Councillor Hoekstra.
I make the motion to accept the year in review as amended.
Thank you. Anybody else have any input for that item? And so I think we need to be considerate of the fact that out of the process, items are particularly cumbersome to take care of when we got somebody watching remote. So I think we're going to, here it comes for us. I don't know how it's going to translate to Councillor Ross, but with respect to the year in review, as updated, you can vote now, please. And that is unanimously in favor. Thank you for that. Next up then is the Data Integrity Project, Phase 3.3. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy, and I apologize. I'm not exactly sure why my little computer here is maybe not operating like it used to. Oh, here we go. So I just had a question about rescinding some of these policies when we kind of know nothing about the reasoning behind that. And in particular, I was curious about the recognition of departing council members policy. So this was a policy that was put into place in 2015. It was never ever used in 2017. Who decides whether a policy is used or not used? And then who decides now that we should rescind it when we really have had no background or information regarding that decision? So my question is, could we have more information about why that policy is being rescinded? First of all, not used and rescinded.
So then specifically, I think there was 3 items that were offered for rescinding, and that was the third of 3. Is it specifically that single item that is of issue? And does anyone else have anything to add to that item? So given that there is some concern about that item, we don't want anybody making a decision when they feel the correct information is not available to do so. So perhaps we could consider the first two items only. And I see here that the recommended motions are listed separately anyway. That makes that fairly clean. But I appreciate you bringing forward the reason as to why. I think that might affect the voting. So given that there are some recommended motions there, perhaps we could consider these separately as recommended. Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would move the first one then, that council rescind the pitch-in program policy. I won't bother reading all the numbers, but it appears that there's two.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Oh, and you can vote now, please. As you can tell, we're just waiting on our online participant. Things are not quite as seamless when you're juggling a bunch of electronic devices and trying to be accurate. Those are now in. And that is unanimously in favor. With respect to the traffic enforcement program policy, would care to make a motion there? Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I move that council rescinds the automated traffic enforcement program policy 21/201.01 2014 PO.
Thank you. Anybody have anything additional on that item? Let's give IT a moment, and that is up now for automatic traffic enforcement for your consideration. Go ahead and vote, please. Make the third one. Or change it. Bring back for more information. And that is unanimously in favor as well. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I move that council directs administration to give more information about rescinding the recognition of departing council members policy.
Thank you.
Is that fair?
It is. And that is unanimously in favor as well. That makes better sense. So you can tell I'm doing two things at once, both of them equally poorly. Please vote now. And that was unanimous as well. So just for clarity to administration, I think there was some concern as to what the motivation for this one item was. And given that it was only put into force 6 or 7 years ago, why the change now? And then we can discuss it at a later date. If it's available for next meeting, fine. If it's at a subsequent after that, so be it. So I believe that was all of the items for the data integrity project that we needed to have for consideration. That moves us into presentations. We've got 3 eager individuals here to speak to us. Little change in what was or in who was expected to be here. We're happy to have with us 3 members of Lacombe Rotary. Gary Godberson, the Vice President, and Mr. Bruce Clark. I'm not certain what your position is. Member at large, very good, fair enough. And Ingrid Limas, the Secretary, who will be leading the presentation today. Gary, please come up to the front there, make yourself at home. And just a reminder for the benefit of those watching online and here in the gallery to please use your microphone. And once it is lit up red by pushing the bar at the bottom, it is active, which it is now, and the floor is yours. So welcome.
Okay, thank you, Grant. And yeah, I was just making some notes on how to start. We actually presented the idea of the Crown Lake shelter just before, everyone's been blaming COVID for everything, but we're going to have to use that one too. That was about the time things went south. I mean, at the time, it was a pretty intimidating project for some of our members, and, we had to find our way forward. I'm quite happy to share that Rotary is now combined. We used to be 2 different clubs, met at different times of the day, different days in the week, but we have combined, and I think that's a huge thing that we're very, very happy to share with you. We are growing. We've been adding a few members recently, and I think we have a real momentum going here. I'm sure everyone knows what Rotary does. We do a variety of things, and thinking about it before the meeting, it's everything from doing scholarships to recently sending a shelter to Turkey for the earthquake disaster over there. That was a Rotary sponsored. So we're doing international things, scholarships, but helping the food bank in Lacombe as well. So really it's quite a list. But what's important to us, we've really been talking about, as we move it forward with a growing Rotary, we really want a bigger project for the city of Lacombe and Crown Lake, and we'll go through the slides here. It's not a long presentation, but we will go back to the basics of why we want to do this project. We believe it's really needed for Lacombe. Crown Lake is a very special place in Lacombe, used every day of the year, and obviously it could use the type of facility that we're putting forward. The other thing I wanted to share before we look at this quick presentation, we did, I don't know if you could say it's unconventional, but a few of the members, including Dawn, Ingrid, myself, went to the Kinsmen and did a presentation to them. So we're looking at the possibility, and this is a potential because they haven't voted on it yet, of 2 organizations, the Kinsmen and Rotary, jointly working together on that. So I think that's a great thing to share as well. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. I'm not sure if I've got control here. I guess I do. Look at that. Okay, it's not that button. You said you're going to help me out, Matt. Oh, there we go. Okay. Not exactly the best pixelation, but we've all been around Crana. I'm sure everyone here has been around Crana multiple times. It's a beautiful spot, you know, whether it's December or July, once again, highly used. Not sure which button I changed last time. Or was that you, Matt? You're like God back there.
Push left or right on that clicker.
Okay, okay. That was the one I didn't try. Okay. So we've got the pictures in front of us here, and this is an artist putting what it could possibly look like. Obviously, there's many designs that might fit this location, but what Rotary is envisioning, of course, the public washrooms is the main need around Crana. That's when we first started talking about it. It really came down to public washrooms, the possibility of having a place for people to have change their skates in the wintertime. If you look at this, the picture in the front, the possibilities include having a roof over top of picnic tables where families can meet and have lunch. So really a multi-use shelter. And so, I mean, that's what it could look like. Obviously, it could go many ways. Also, there's a real need for parking down there. I'm sure everyone here realizes that too, that for this facility to really be successful, it would have to have some better parking. So that's really what we're bringing to Lacombe, the city of Lacombe today. The big thing is the location we're thinking about is right adjacent to the existing parking. We don't know, we certainly aren't familiar with engineering where, let's say, sewer and water lines run. You know, if traffic control allows, you know, bigger parking, and we just don't know that as far as engineering. So what we're asking the city of Lacombe is to support this initiative by directing the engineering department to determine the location suitability, the traffic parking options, and site preparation. And once that's looked on, we can start putting our plan into action to start raising the money. And on our final slide, we'll share on how that might look like. Do you guys want to add anything? Bruce?
No, I don't think I have anything to add. I don't remember what the images showed, but there was a lot of discussion that on the top of the building would be solar panels to help the green initiative.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for reminding me. That Ingrid? No? Okay, so the numbers, and obviously this is a moving target. One of the main now, Kinsman was going to vote on Friday. This is how things go. Everything looked quite positive. The membership, after we did the presentation, was pretty optimistic about this. They liked the idea of working together. And they didn't have quorum on Friday, but I talked to the president today, and they will get that quorum and they will vote on it. I mean, that's how things go, right? We went to the meeting and there's 40 people. It came the next week, it was voting and they didn't have quorum. So luck of the draw, but we're quite optimistic and confident that they will be there, but certainly can't promise that. Russell wanted to be here. He's the president of Kinsman, and unfortunately, another event came in the way. There was a family emergency, so but I will report back to him after this. So we're looking at Lacombe Rotary kicking in, hopefully the Kinsman, various businesses, looking at a private donation wall, which seems to work in other jurisdictions, other cities and towns across the country. We know that grants are available once we start raising significant dollars. We're not sure what the city of Lacombe and county of Lacombe are prepared to do, but you know, certainly we want to get the ball rolling. You know, we think it's important for the city, and certainly want to carry it forward or help carry it forward. And that's about all I've got. Unless- Bruce, Ingrid? Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming here to present to us. Be available for questions and whatnot. Got a couple of lights on here from council, so I'll pass the mic over to Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I have two questions. One, just a clarification then. So the only ask tonight is you're asking the city to take the time to do its engineering magic and sort of help select sort of an ideal site for something like this. So that at this point in time is the only ask. And I see nods, so I'm going to say that's yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
and then the other thing, the only other question I have, which is going to be a question that I'm sure everybody has, is expected time frame that, now I realize, of course, you don't have your partner in line yet and the rest of it, but your own anticipated, time frame as far as raising the portion that you were thinking. Do you have sort of an estimate on that?
We haven't talked intensively about it. My personal opinion is it would be under 3 years, and it could be moved along pretty quickly. We've talked about some of our major events in town, starting with a lobster dinner, where the proceeds go 100% towards this. Like, we want to have a instant impact and not carry this on for multiple years. So, once again, that's Bruce.
Yeah, and we're eligible for matching grants from Rotary International to help us raise our funds, as well as contributions from the companies that would help build the structure.
That's right. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just curious what your, excuse me, what your threshold is for the donation wall in terms of getting a name on there. Is it 500,000, 5,000? I know it's pretty early to maybe make that determination. But I was just curious.
Yeah, we haven't got that far in the planning. I think obviously we want to make sure that it's doable and get that green light on the location, and then things can really start moving. But I think what we'll do, Ruben, is look at what other successes and other projects. Certainly, I'm not familiar with them, but see where the thresholds might be.
I just wanted to know how much I had to give. That's all.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for doing this. I mean, you're right. Crown and Lake is pretty important in Lacombe, and so to have this there would be fantastic. As soon as you started talking engineering, though, then I got nervous because it's right next to a body of water, and engineers don't like building next to bodies of water and all that stuff, and just even terms of nature. And so I really hope that there's some way of doing this. Don't get me wrong. I'm just that, because I'm assuming these little bubbles on the right are parking spots. Is that what that in this picture? Is that?
Picnic tables.
Oh, okay. So that's still all under the roof. Okay. So, okay, my mistake. But where's the park? Where are we going to put the parking? That will be an issue. So, but thank you for presenting this.
This rendition is the latest one. As Gary said, the first one we came up with was a pretty daunting project that would have cost probably twice of what we're looking at today. And really, before we finalize the design and all the features, we kind of need, that's why we're asking for some of the engineering, so we understand what we have to work with. So before we go too much further with the building design, we kind of need to get some support from the engineering piece.
Councillor Gullickson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just some clarification for council. This is one of the things that Kinsman wanted as far as participating in this project. Is that not correct? The show of support from council?
Can you repeat that, Don? Please.
That Kinsman had requested that we have the support from council.
Yes,
for them to
okay, yes, I
participate.
understand. That is correct. Yes, they want support before, so they can take it back to their membership. They were going to vote for it on Friday, but Russell did reiterate that today, what you're saying, that it'd be good to have support from the council before, they greenlight it too.
Councillor Dallas. Oh, I'm sorry, just one moment. Were you finished?
I just had one other.
Go ahead. No, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry about that. Also, I think one of the things we need to be clear on is that this would be all access facility. Is that not correct? Totally accessible?
That is correct.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dallas.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Casey. Thank you for bringing this presentation here. I think, it's been reiterated and you've said it yourself. I think it would be fantastic to improve the Crana Lake, and any facilities that we can investigate, I think are worth looking at. I have several questions in regards to it, I guess, with ownership of the property once it's built, maintenance, staffing, and those sort of items. Have you guys put any consideration to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to get it right here, Councillor Dallas. I'm not going to use the first name this time. We did talk about this, that this facility would be turned over to the city to look after. We realize obviously there's maintenance, there's washrooms that have to be looked after, et cetera. So our intention is help get it built and then turn it back to the city.
Thank you. Well, I commend you on your initiative to come up with this project. However, in saying so, there are some pitfalls that I think we need to be very realistic about, some of which you've identified here, as far as parking and whatnot and suitability of the area. As far as the suitability of the area, I think calls into question the overall cost budget that was put forward here, I think is extremely conservative for the kind of money that we're looking at here. A previous project that the city and county were involved in is producing an accessible dock on Len Thompson Pond, which I'm sure you're aware of. And that was for this kind of money with no services, really no significant site work, no building, and really very little engineering costs and whatnot that are outside of the cost of the item itself. So I think this is extremely wishful thinking that you would be able to produce that project there nearly anywhere for that kind of money, much less on an area that's challenging because of the topography and the location to a riparian area on top of it. In saying that, I'm not trying to discourage you.
Yeah.
I just want to be realistic about it because there is some challenges here. You identified parking. I think that I'm not necessarily sure that our own engineering department is necessarily the best use or is going to come up with the answers that you want on here. I think that quite often an outside organization comes at things with a new lens and is able to offer perhaps some fresh ideas. This one's going to be challenging to fit that in there and make this in a usable location and have parking even remotely close to it. That's just a fact of life. There isn't much space available. The other significant thing is, well, I appreciate you said this will be a city structure and whatnot. As council, we need to be realistic that this does not appear anywhere in our current capital budget. And we do have a process for these types of things. It's not to say they're not wanted, but there is a process in place to make them happen. And also, you have listed on here the county of Lacombe and the city of Lacombe as well, which is understandable and expected. However, we do have a structured format in place for dealing with asks for the community in that regard too. So I just want you to be realistic on the time frame and expectations of what we're able to do without needlessly discouraging you on a project. This one has some significant pitfalls.
Okay, if I can just respond on the dollar amount.
Okay.
First of all, it didn't include parking or sewer and water. This was really just the structure itself.
Okay.
So just, and maybe it is still light, that's possible, but I'm guessing that obviously the pipe, the roads, the pavement are significant. I think we realize that.
Yeah, and once again, I wasn't trying to, I just, we need to be realistic with these types of things, and it's, yeah, there's, in saying that, I'm always searching for ways to improve our community, and I commend you for bringing forward a plan, and look forward to seeing where we can take it.
Okay, just one final thing, Grant. Sorry, using first names again. Mayor Creasy, talking about it, we know that it doesn't necessarily have to be this exact location right next to the parking there, that Crown Lake is a pretty big area. Now, we haven't gone out and identified a possible location number 2, really. I think that does fall once again to engineering, but if it's not there, there might be a second location, and you know, it shouldn't die just on that one location. We hope that there's an alternative that's identified if that doesn't work. It's a possibility, and maybe a lot cheaper too, right?
Fair enough.
Same time.
Okay. Great. And that is certainly something that perhaps at a high level that either our own team or an outside engineering firm could look at. And I think that that would be a realistic approach at this early point to try and pursue some other options. And maybe there is one that is on the lake that in a little different location. That's fair. Thank you. Acting CEO, LaPointe.
Mayor Creasy, I would suggest that it might be wise to accept the presentation this evening as information, and then administration could return the request to council at a later date as part of the request for decision process.
Decent option, thank you. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Is it possible to make that recommendation tonight?
It's your option to structure a motion however you see fit, Councillor Gullickson.
Can I make that motion right now?
The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll make the motion that the City of Lacombe Council ask administration to support this important initiative by directing the engineering department to determine location suitability for the project. So instead of taking the parking right out of it, because that would obviously be part of it.
Thank you. We'll give administration an opportunity to enter that motion into the system. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just for clarification on that motion, is that to determine location suitability as in specifically this one, or are you directing administration to potentially come up with location, potential locations?
That would be potential locations, so suitability, a suitable location for the project. So whether it's here or somewhere else on there.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Has administration been involved with this presentation at all yet in I guess, communication wise and discussing it?
Acting CEO LaPointe.
We have met and discussed the project, but not in detail at this point. So this was the direction that Rotary decided to take the initiative at this point.
Thank you.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Not meaning to be also a bit of a, maybe a realist in this too. Does that motion allow for no location? Like, I guess I wondered if the wording is saying we are tasking administration to find a location. What if the possibility is if there's no location? May I rehear, can I hear the motion again? Does it allow for that option?
Coordinator Balabono, could I have you just reread the motion as it exists now, please?
Yes, Mayor Creasy. The motion that I've recorded is that council direct administration to support the Crown Lake Shelter Initiative by directing the engineering department to determine potential location suitability, traffic options, and site preparation.
So from that wording, I would suggest that it does allow for that to address potential ones. If none exist, it'll be a pretty short report. But Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I guess it says in the motion that council direct administration to support this project. So we are in essence then saying we endorse this project. Okay, I just want to,
I think you could
I'm reading it right off of here.
Yeah.
That's what it says. Direct administration to
by-
support.
by doing what it
Okay.
outlined. I think I understand what you're getting at, and I would just put it to Councillor Gullickson if he is satisfied with the wording or wishes to reword it perhaps a little more generically.
I think it's fairly generic now. I think it can be no location. It depends on what they find. So I think that's exactly what we need to have that figured out if this is a possibility before we get too carried away with fundraising and so on. And that's the first step.
Thank you. Councillor Dallas?
Thank you, Mayor Casey. I think just from everything I'm hearing, I would have personally, I prefer if we just take this as information and then we can make a further motion from there based on what administration thinks would be our responsibility in this planning process. But we can vote on this motion and go from there.
Thank you. I think that's a perfect reminder for council to suggest that regardless of the outcome of this motion, that other motions can in fact be entertained as well. Any other questions or comments? I think that Coordinator Bellabono.
Sorry, Mayor Creasy, before we start, just wanted to let you know that Councillor Ross disconnected due to a, I guess he was having a bad connection with hearing as well. So he did leave the meeting at 5:45 today.
Appreciate that notification. This will be a vote of 6 as opposed to 7 then. Thank you. All right, so that motion has been uploaded to your machines. Please go ahead and vote now. So that item is a split vote by a margin of 5-1. Are there any other motions we wish to be entertained at this time on this project? Makes that easy. Very good. So for the presenters, then I would suggest that keep communication lines open with administration, and we'll go through some next steps and take it from there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I take a picture of this before you go?
And I would just ask that Manager Mitchell can come up and make yourself ready for the next item.
I can arrange to have those images sent to you.
Okay, so the next item up under requests for decision is item number 6.1. That's our active transportation, the crosswalk improvement plan. Manager Mitchell, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, and good evening, members of council. So tonight I'm presenting to you the active transportation crosswalk improvement plan, which actually has been under development for a couple of years now. Back in 2020, you may recall that one of council's strategic goals at the time was to make Lacombe a walkable city. The desired outcome was to ensure that Lacombe's pedestrian network was contiguous throughout the city wherever possible, and that crosswalks, sidewalks, and trails were in good condition. So to help meet that goal, engineering services actually worked with our engineering consultant back in 2019, 2020 to develop a treatment guideline, which can be found in Appendix A of this plan. That guideline outlines a warrant process to ensure that engineering services reviews all crosswalk requests in a consistent manner and that treatment is uniform and consistent with the Transportation Association of Canada recommendations. The warrant criteria in this plan looks at the average daily volume of vehicles, the number of pedestrians, posted speed limits, number of lanes of traffic, the distance to the nearest marked crosswalk facility, the road classification, and if it's a mid-block crossing. We also consider if there are adjacent properties with high pedestrian demand, such as parks, schools, businesses, recreation facilities, and others of the like. Once we had the draft guideline, we gathered data and analyzed the incoming crossing requests. And this happened over a period of 3 years. Now, the plan outlines 5 levels for crosswalks. Level 0 is an unmarked crosswalk, nothing there, it's implied. Level 1 is your basic crosswalk. It's marked with signage and the parallel pavement markings. And that's the most common thing you see here in town. Level 2 are marked crosswalks with signage and zebra pavement markings. And these are the ones you see in the downtown area. They're a little bit more highly visible, also more expensive. And level 3 are the crosswalks with enhanced treatment, such as rapid rectangular flashing beacons, such as the one down by Corona Lake in the area we were just discussing now, curb extensions, or overhead flashing beacons, which is what you frequently see in school zones. And the final level is level 4, and that's traffic signal lights, where we have the pedestrian mark crosswalks that tell you when to walk and when to stop. So as I mentioned, we gathered data on crosswalk requests for over 3 years, for 3 years, to look for patterns, determine the level of need, and to develop a prioritization framework. Over that time, we received 24 crossing requests. Of those 24 requests we analyzed, engineering services recommended 2 for future upgrades, 9 for new crosswalk installations, 5 for further review, and 8 did not warrant an installation or an upgrade. Now, one item of note, the 5 that required further review, we've included the cost for engineering of that further review in this report, but because we do not know the outcome, the costs for implementation or construction are not included in this report. Now, during our review, we did notice that about 1 in 3 requests did not warrant an upgrade, but there were other improvements that could be made to increase pedestrian safety at all types of crossings, whether an improvement was warranted or not. And these include, or were lumped into kind of 3 categories. One was creating better sight lines for both pedestrians and drivers. Second was better illumination. And the third was ensuring that the crosswalk had accessible connectivity. So this is things like curb ramps or making sure that the sidewalk connections follow the pedestrian desire lines. What we found here was 2 out of the 3 crosswalks reviewed were candidates for 1 or more of these type of improvements. However, it is these type of improvements that carry the most variable costs and can have the greatest impact to residents. And our favorite subject of the night, parking. A good example here is with sight lines. The recommended and most common way to fix sight lines is to reduce the no parking zone in front of crosswalks. The Transportation Association of Canada recommends a no parking zone of 15 meters. The city's current standard is 5 meters. And so as you can imagine, that kind of technically our parking spots, according to our bylaw, are 7 meters long. Often vehicles will fit into 5. So increasing them to 15 meters can reduce parking by 4 to 6 parking spots at some crosswalks, not all crosswalks, practically speaking. So let's see, some areas here in the city require or rely heavily on street parking. So in some areas, this will have a much greater impact than others. And so I want to bring your attention to Woodland Drive, east of Crana Lake, down in the area we're talking about. If you just head east, you'll notice that street parking there is heavily utilized. And another area that's also commonly heavily utilized is Terrace Heights Drive, east of the roundabout. Street parking is quite heavily relied upon there. Other areas of the town, you've got driveways that are in front of crosswalks. You've got any area where you have driveway, street parking is less utilized, and so there will be a lesser impact there. So I did want to highlight that to council because this plan does rely heavily, when we say improve sightlines, what we are talking about is reducing or increasing that no parking zone in front of those crosswalks. And that is our default solution. There is other solutions that we can pursue. One such as concrete curb extensions. These bring the pedestrians out into view of traffic more quickly, and so therefore the sight line can be reduced, and so there still will be a no parking zone where you build the curb connection, but it won't be as large. The parking impact will be less, especially for corner lot homes. Now these, of course, also come at a higher cost. The second other option for improving crosswalks was illumination. And this is also one where the improvement cost can be highly variable. In some areas of town, there's very little street lighting and the power runs in the back alleys, so it's not an easy fix to add an extra light at a crosswalk. And in these areas, administration will not likely recommend a lighting improvement until a capital project triggers a lighting review for the entire area. However, there are other areas where we can add an intermittent light post, or Fortis even has ones where you can strap on a light to an existing power pole. Those are much more cost effective. So what we would do in areas where we've identified lighting as a concern is we'd refer it to Fortis and ask them to review it and provide us with options for lighting. And then those we would bring to council on an annual basis when we review the budget during budget deliberations. And then the third option was accessible connectivity. And again, this can vary highly in cost as well. In some areas, it's just as simple as adding better curb ramps, so you have accessibility on both sides of the street. And in other areas, it includes increasing the length of the sidewalk or adding a new connection point that follows the pedestrian desire lines. Of the 24 crossings we analyzed, 14 had deficient sight lines, 8 required an illumination review by Fortis, and 14 need upgrades to improve accessible pedestrian connectivity. The Active Transportation Crosswalk Improvement Plan includes cost estimates to complete both the crosswalk work and the other improvements identified in our analysis. Engineering Services is recommending that we complete the straightforward projects with high or medium priority rankings that do not require an illumination by Fortis in 2023. We can fairly easily move these into the 2023 Capital Works program. The estimated construction cost is $12,000. Also of note, there is a crossing review already underway for the crossing conditions at 50th Ave and 51st Street, which is number 21 in our review that was flagged for further engineering. And that's based on the notice of motion from council a few weeks ago. For the remaining projects, the city has an annual sidewalk replacement budget for the downtown area. Engineering Services is recommending extending that scope to include sidewalks and crosswalks for the whole city. We will bring forward for budget delivery for the 2024 budget deliberations a request to increase the budget by $70,000 annually and expand the scope as noted. This will address the backlog of requests that we received over a 3-year period. Table 1 in this memo outlines the recommendations for this 3-year implementation plan. I'll stop speaking now and ask if you have any questions.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I think you answered the question already, but it does list $11,000 in 2023 for the 50th Avenue, 50th Street one. That is purely engineering, you're saying. That cost, there is And you're just speculating that it's going to be 11,000 to engineer, or you kind of know that that's,
It's already underway. Yeah.
okay, that's what's happening there. Thank you.
Just one item for clarification there. You identified approximately $210,000 required in 3 years to bring several crosswalks up to standard. Is that for all of the high and medium priority crosswalks?
It's a great question. So what actually any recommendation we made, so some of them have priority rankings as low as 4, are included in this plan. I do anticipate that over the next 3 years, as we roll out this implementation plan, we will get requests for higher priority ones, and those ones will continue to kind of fall down the list. So by the method of our priority ranking system in the active transportation in the plan, some of those ones will fall off in all likelihood.
Fall off as in will not meet the threshold to be ranked high enough to be addressed in that year.
Fall off, yes, or as in consistently sit at the bottom of the plan until such a time that we've caught up with all of our major crosswalks and we have budget to spare, and then we'll catch up to those ones. But we all know the practical reality of that.
Councillor Dallas?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for this presentation. I think a lot of these are really great options, and I like what you said about the likelihood of other projects coming forward once this starts to roll out. So I think, yeah, we definitely do have to evaluate investing a little bit more into these projects and to complete them. Thank you.
Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I really appreciate finally seeing this. I know we've talked about it for a long time. This is obviously a hot topic quite often, all these locations all over town. You know, this is a safety thing. It really is. But I also love the fact that it now has criteria and we can point to why it's this and why it's that, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm actually, geeky as it sounds, really excited about this. So I would move that council endorse the active transportation crosswalk improvement plan.
Thank you. Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. In terms of accessibility, are you talking like curb cuts and that kind of thing? Like, and are you actually, do you involve someone who has accessibility issues in that to kind of give some feedback, or how do you do that?
That's a great question, Councillor Connick. For this particular plan, yes, it just includes the cost included in this plan is just the curb cuts or the curb ramps. And in some cases, it's, again, like I said, if there's a missing chunk of sidewalk that connects to strong desire lines, we've also added a price to include up to 30-40 meters of missing sidewalk connection. However, administration will be working on an accessibility plan later this year, and as part of that plan, we would be inviting DARP to comment, and then we'll also be reaching out to other community groups that have expressed an interest in accessibility in the past.
So to be clear, those accessibility ramps and whatnot are already undertaken on a regular basis as part of the sidewalk improvement or the ongoing sidewalk improvement plan, are they not?
Correct. The ongoing sidewalk improvement plan, though, is applicable only to the downtown. So when we get requests outside of the downtown, it depends on what our roads department has in budget and availability to be able to tackle one-off projects. And a lot of times they're dealing with replacement in kind. They're not installing new curb ramps and the like.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Dallas?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I just have one follow-up question in regards to some comments you made. In regards to the 15 meters and the 5 meters, that is something that that'll be your initiative. That doesn't have to come from council, and that's your control, or I guess.
the way the plan is written right now, yes, the default would be that we would go to the no parking for 15 meters. However, I do mention in this that we would be making the residents aware. And so if administration receives strong pushback, and we were looking at an area that was perhaps woodland or terrace heights where we can see parking is actually of significant impact, or perhaps there's somebody with accessibility issues that lives in that house or that kind of thing, that would be something where we would take another look at it. And if that was the only way, perhaps we could find, if it's a corner lot, perhaps we could find parking around the corner, or just look at other options. If that's still a challenge and we find that perhaps concrete bulb outs where we can keep a parking spot adjacent to that house is the best thing. That's something that we would actually probably bring to council with the next budget cycle to say, in this particular case, we're recommending a higher upgrade for these reasons.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Do you have a motion before us? Please go ahead and vote. While that is being undertaken, one parking related item that I'll ask while you're here on specifically to the area that we were speaking of earlier from the presentation, along Wolf Creek Drive on the west half. The road is rather narrow and there's no parking allowed there. On the on the eastern half. On the western half, where houses are located mostly along one side of the road and the road is substantially wider, it is posted no parking throughout. And I was curious, what is the reasoning for that?
That actually supersedes my day, but I have noticed it as well. I might ask Director Thompson if he has an idea for that.
Mayor Christie, I'd have to speculate. So take that for what it's worth. It could be a view of the lake. It could be having visibility of the pathway along there against the road, snow clearing. These are, I don't know the specific reason off the top of my head, but it's something we could look into.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty there, because winter naturally is a different item, but during the summer, I think it's ridiculous that the parking is not allowed on there. As a resident of that area, do I want to see a bunch of people parking along there? Yeah, perhaps not, but for the city overall, I think it's ridiculous that we can't park there, and I would suggest that we look at removing those signs and perhaps adding yet another sidewalk crossing in line with the trail that connects halfway down the residential development. I think there's quite a few parking spots there, and given that it's in a premium in that area, it's still on the lake and gives people access to it. So I think that would be a viable change, and without any foreseeable negative impact to the area. I think it's something we should sure consider. Anyway, with respect to the motion, the council endorses the active transportation crosswalk improvement plan. The vote is unanimously in favor. Thank you, everyone. And next up is Director Thompson for item 6.2, the recycling services request for expressions of interest. Update, please.
Thank you, Mayor Christie, and good evening, Council. I'm here tonight to bring Council a few updates regarding our recycling services. Two items are a follow-up to a previous presentation that administration had made in August of 2022 regarding the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot, and the other two are regarding a new regulation that's come into effect regarding the extended producer responsibilities program from the province of Alberta. So with regard to the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot, at the August 22nd meeting, Council directed administration to explore the cost of adding number 5 plastics as an eligible material to be recycled at that depot. And so we have looked at that. It is somewhat difficult to kind of narrow down the volume of number 5 plastics from the rest of the mixed recycling plastics. I've looked at a number of studies from the federal government that looks at the recycling programs across the country in general, and based on that information, made some assumptions and estimates on what the weight of that material might look like in Lacombe. Because that would be the differentiating factor. Well, actually, there'd be 2 differentiating factors. One would be, is there a cost increase for our recycling processor to process that extra material if that's being added to the mixed recycling bins? And we can say now that extra processing cost per ton or per tone to add number 5 plastics to the mix. However, we are charged from our recycler on a weight basis to process the material. And so we can expect that by opening up the program to more plastics, that there would be more weight. And so we looked at the cost of what that might be based on some. And so based on that, I do anticipate that the extra weight for our mixed recyclable plastics would be about 15 to 20% higher if we were to accept number 5 plastics, which translates into approximately $7,000 in extra processing costs on the single, the single bin mixed recycling costs for the city of Lacombe. Then on top of that, there would be some costs to upgrade our signage just to indicate that number 5 plastics would be accepted. So given that, if you'll recall that when we received the RFEOY in last summer, we did hear from recyclers that the number 5 plastics were in demand on the wholesale market, that they are collecting them, sorting them, and selling them to wholesalers as feedstock to their processes. And so because they are in demand, we felt that there were merits to expanding our program to include number 5 plastics again. And so tonight we are, based on the costs being $7,000 is our estimate today, and the fact that there is a demand for them, our recommendation tonight is to expand the program to include number 5 plastics at the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot.
So Director Thompson, that caught the $7,000, that was per month?
No, that's an annual cost.
Okay, just forgive me, you had said approximately 20% more than what we're currently spending, which is around $1,000 a day, $350,000 per year, and 20% of that.
Thanks for the opportunity to clarify. 20% more weight of the mixed recyclable material, so that our all-in costs that are our budget are made up of the cardboard and the mixed recyclable material. And they are made up of the trucking cost, the bin rental cost, the tipping fees, are all in on the budget. And so the processing cost is actually something in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% of our overall cost to run that depot.
Thank you.
And so it's less of an impact on the bottom line. The second item regarding the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot is with respect to getting quotes. And so when we concluded the RFEOY process, it did show that there was an opportunity to lower costs at the Wolf Creek Recycle Depot. There was a range of contractors who provided pricing that was significantly lower than what we were paying. And so we wanted to pursue that. Now, one thing we cautioned at the time was that the pricing we were asking from contractors was non-binding. It was an indicative pricing. We wanted to get an idea of what the market is doing and an idea of what their costs would be. And so it was we weren't holding them to that. We just wanted to get some information from them in order to make some decisions on what the next steps might be. The motion at the time to enter into a 3-year contract or to secure quotes for a 3-year contract was defeated. So we wanted to just return this item to council and just indicate that we think that our administration thinks that it is best practice. Right now, we are on a current month-to-month arrangement. There isn't a contract in place per se. We do think that it would be best practice that to seek out quotes annually and secure a contractor annually, at least right now, until the program is taken over by the province through their EPR initiative, which I'll talk to in a bit. So we just wanted to say that it is our intention to put it out for firm quotes annually, and then make decisions based on minimum service levels expected by council and the costs on those programs that we get. With respect to EPR, so EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. This is an initiative by the province of Alberta. It's certainly not the only province in Canada that has this framework. And what it does is it's a regulatory framework that transfers the cost of recycling programs to, for lack of a better term, industry, so that those who are importing material or producing material are the ones that are bearing the cost of those. And so the way that's done is the province is setting up the regulation so that, or has set up the regulation so that fees can be charged on, or fees will be charged to producers who then work those costs into their products, so that purchasers of those, the end consumer is paying for that fee in the cost of the product, and that those producers are then being obligated to recycle a certain percentage of their material that they produce within the province. And so the way it's rolling out is that the province has, the regulation has taken effect in October of 2022. They have named a management, like a third-party arm, the Alberta Recycling Management Authority, and that authority is now in charge of operationalizing the regulation, making all the rules, the regulation, or the rules, the bylaws, the guidelines, running the whole program and taking it to the next level, which is a lot of detail. How is it actually going to work? For the regulation also has some key milestones or deadlines for when that has to be operationalized. And so for Lacombe, we want to provide an update on how that impacts Lacombe. And so by April 1st, 2025, the regulation requires the producers provide a recycling depot for Lacombe at no cost to Lacombe directly. It'd be provided by that EPR funded through consumers. And so ARMA, the Alberta Recycling Management Authority, will be releasing information to municipalities and producers this fall and how to register and start to kind of get more information about how that actually works and how that happens. But the regulation does require that a recycling depot be provided by April 1st, 2025. It also requires that Lacombe be provided, based on our population, be provided with a site that can receive hazardous and special products as well. So from that perspective, to have a separate site would be an increased level of service. Some things we don't know now are the exact service levels that will come out of that program. So we don't know how many bins will be on site. We don't know if that's the program. There isn't any requirement in the regulation to have a site manned or unmanned. Don't know if there's going to be an increased level of service, say around Christmas time, like we provide now, or even if there's an option to increase the level of service, even at a cost to the municipality. So these are some questions that ARMA is facing that we will certainly ask them when they start to release details around what their program looks like. But we can say that the regulation does require that they take over the site or provide a site, either through taking over the existing Wolf Creek Recycle Depot or providing a different site in Lacombe. But certainly if there's a separate site, then our site would be redundant. One thing that is a bit of a gap, I would say, in the regulation that we wanted to highlight was regarding the curbside recycling program. So the way the regulation works or is written is that any municipality that has a recycling program, either curbside or a depot, we'll have it taken over effectively by the program by that April 1st, 2025 deadline. So we have a depot, that's what the program will take over. We do not have a curbside recycling program, so we will not get a curbside recycling program by April 1st, 2025. However, the regulation does have a provision for municipalities that don't have any recycling services at all to receive if they don't have recycling services, that they will get a depot by 2026. And so we asked the question, well, where does that leave Lacombe, who doesn't have a curbside recycling service? It does have a depot. In 2026, we read that means Lacombe wouldn't get a curbside recycling program. And right now, the answer we got back from the province was that yes, we are interpreting that correctly, but that they are aware of that that situation. They're analyzing it further. I'm not sure what that exactly means or what outcome that will result in for us, but it's certainly something that they're aware of and we're aware of. Now, the reason why we highlight that is because it's very weird for an industry-led program to develop a curbside recycling protocol or a program for, say, a municipality just to the north of us and a municipality just to the south of us and not do Lacombe. It might almost be less efficient to have a program that skips Lacombe. And so we would like to, or we're recommending that council provide us direction, administration direction, to reach out to our MLA on your behalf in order to advocate or have our MLA advocate for Lacombe's inclusion in the EPR program, so that when it is rolled out, even in 2026, that Lacombe is included in the curbside recycling program moving forward. Mayor Creasy and Council, that's my presentation and update tonight.
Thank you very much for that, Director Thompson. I was just curious with the dates between the timing for the takeover of collection and the collection depot from ARMA with the alignment to us asking for a rebid on our current provider. How does that line up date-wise?
We'd reach out, ask for quotes for the 23 to 24 year, and then the 24 to 25 year, and then ending on April 1st. So effectively, we'd ask for quotes soon, right away, to bridge us until this time in 2024. We do it again, and that would carry us through to April of 25. And then at that point, we would certainly have more information to understand when exactly is the new provider going to be taking over the depot.
Okay. And just so I can better understand the idea with the type 5 plastics, are we hoping that somehow the implementation of the collection, I use that word collection rather than recycling because we have not talked about any recycling here whatsoever, merely collection. For that collection, is that somehow going to put us in better standing with ARMA or the province or whoever it may be? Or I'd like to better understand where that's coming from.
They're completely unrelated. Okay. That the regulation has specific types of materials that the producers have to capture and are required to recycle. There is nothing in the regulation that says whether Lacombe has what types of materials we recycle today affects what type of materials they have the producers are bound to recycle. That's totally separate. So no, it's simply that there's a demand for the product on the wholesale market, and that the cost is reasonable at this point in time, it appears, based on our estimates. And so our recommendation is to expand the program to include it today, but certainly has no bearing on the EPR program at all.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for this report and for rushing it, because I did ask that it was sooner than later, not wanting to miss it. I just have a few questions too about these number 5 plastics. You mentioned that they're in higher demand. And so the company that's collecting them or processing them, as you say, are able to sell them more readily. So I'm always a little bit curious about that formula. We have to pay for them to pick it up, but then they get to sell it. So anyhow, that's just a comment. But are we convinced that this product is being used, genuinely used? We hear that it's in greater demand, but are we still misleading our citizens by saying that something's actually happening to this product? I struggle with that. So that's my first question. Do we genuinely know number 5 plastics are being used out there and turned into products? And then, secondly would be about the EPR program. I understand, yes, it's in place, but it's going to take a lot of years before the producers are actually shouldering that cost. And I know there's a timeline, but we don't know for sure that it's going to roll out as it's being proposed. Producers haven't. I mean, they're going to be forced to do it, but how are we assured that it will roll out to those date lines? I mean, I guess what is administration's assurance on that front?
So on the EPR rollout, I would say my confidence lies in the ability for the regulation to remain in force. So as long as your regulation remains in force, I think there's enough meat there that says that that's when it has to happen. And they have a managed third-party branch or a third-party. They've done enough work now to set up the regulation and to now involve a third party like a ARMA and give them the authority to begin work on all of this. That as long as that regulation stays in effect and survives a provincial election, that it will roll out. They may need to repeal or amend the legislation to change the deadlines if that's what ARMA hears from producers and municipalities this fall. If we're registering registering themselves and they're hearing from producers that we just need more time, it's entirely possible. And I think to your point, maybe likely that legislation could be amended in order to provide more time for the implementation. That's as far as I could say in terms of guaranteeing the rollout. In terms of the number 5 plastics and guaranteeing to be recycled, the recycling programs in general they're not self-sustaining. They're much like a service for residents, and that there is a cost to them. They're not self-sustaining. Like the material isn't valuable enough that it's generating a profit as a byproduct of purchasing it. And so the funding to supplement that, but nonetheless, the circular economy idea of that material not making its way into the landfill, the material where it is possible to be reused, is still, in my view, that's still a good end. That's still in principle. It's just how much you're willing to pay for that circular economy, and then who is incentivized to do the best job at that. And I think that municipalities right now in Alberta, every individual municipality, big or small, is tasked with that objective, is to say, to guarantee, or to the extent that they can, where that recyclable material is going, is it re-entering the market in a meaningful way. That's an extremely challenging task to ask any municipality to take on, big or small. I mean, it's much like guaranteeing the clothes you bought were bought from a place with ethical standards. It's like everything in your closet has that. It's a very difficult thing to follow that along the supply chain all the way back, and to say all along the way that followed an ethical labor standard. So, and with regard to recycling, with a centralized EPR program, I think that the best chance that it has is through provincial experts and oversight. It aggregates and creates a common standard across the entire province. And they certainly, if if the regulation requires, for example, 80% of certain types of plastics be recycled, they have to measure that and they have to report that, and there's scrutiny on that from every producer that's registered for the program. That's not something an individual municipality can do. Like every producer in Lacombe, or that brings everyone who brings materials into Lacombe has to then have a separate specific reporting structure for Lacombe. It's difficult to implement, and I think the uptake would be very challenging to enforce. But certainly at the provincial level, that's a different ball game. And so in terms of guaranteeing the recyclability of number 5 plastics, I can't guarantee that. We can say what the contractors are reporting. We can say, and I think even the contractors could conceivably say, we are selling this product, and we can prove we're selling this product to somebody else. But then what are they doing with it? And what are they doing with it? And when it gets recycled, what's happening there? It's a whole supply chain that to pin it down to say, I guarantee it's being recycled and turning into a new product. And what is the new product? Is the new product the feedstock for another industry? And that's good, like that's the new product. So it's just this really, really challenging question to pin down. I understand why people are asking for it, and I completely understand why council would be interested in answering that question. It's just a really, really difficult question to nail down and pin down and give a straight answer on. So thanks, I'll stop talking now.
May I follow up?
Just to follow up, I also had a question somewhere in here. It said about educating the consumer or the citizen. I was wondering that if and when new signage is put up there, could we change the name of even that it's not a recycling depot? I would totally support what Mayor Creasy was saying. This is a collection facility. It is not a recycling depot. Some municipalities are calling them eco stations, whatever you want to call them. I really think it's very important that we stress to citizens that we are not in any way convinced that any recycling is genuinely happening. It might be moved along, but we cannot tell our citizens that when they're dropping off things at the depot that it's getting recycled. And so I think that is a really, if nothing else, let's start educating our citizens that way so that they would really considering reduce and reuse more than recycle.
I was curious with respect to the EPR. We've got lots of other jurisdictions in Canada and well across North America that have implemented this, some of them for quite some time now. And if we've got any positive outcomes to share with genuine recycling in those areas.
I think that's something I'd have to take away, Mayor Creasy, and return with some testimonials or some. How are these other EPR programs, I think, specifically measuring the success of their programs? Like, how are they measuring them, and what is the success of their programs in their eyes? I think that's a question I'd have to take back and return.
No, and that's a fair answer. I was basically trying to put you on the spot because I think that you're not going to find any. Perhaps I'm wrong, and there are some positive examples, but they'll be few and far between. I just think we've kind of been around and around and around in a recycling circle almost to say on this item. And I think that suggesting that we're going to somehow be able to educate public to recycle a specific number of plastic is extremely unrealistic. That was identified on any of the forums that I've been on. It was by far the most troublesome portion of collection and MSR recycling was the educational portion of it. And it resulted in extremely poor outcomes in every instance that I'm aware of. So I think one thing is for certain, and this will add a cost. I think the number that we've been given here is perhaps a little light, but even if it weren't, it's definitely going to add cost. Is it going to result in any positive difference to the collection and recycling? On that, I am certainly not even remotely convinced of. And I'm afraid that we're going to end up with contaminated loads. They're going to end up in the landfill, just like our contaminated loads do now. Only we'll have more of them. and more often, especially with something that is proven to be as hard to comprehend for the public at large, in knowing that only a specific type of plastic, even though it's identified on the product, it's a very difficult thing to do. So if in fact this was going to help us take a step up the ladder in being available for possible improvements in the EPR, I think I'd be for it. Short of that, I really don't see the advantage of it whatsoever. And I do remain hopeful that over the next decade or two that this EPR will begin to have a positive effect, but I hope it's that short a time period. That in combination with some of the improvements that we're making even locally at the regional level are going to hopefully bear fruit. But yeah, all of this stuff takes an awful long time. And I'm sorry, but I do not see getting on this program and further enhancing our collection to be beneficial, in my opinion. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I echo what you just said. Not sure about number 5 plastics. I know at the meeting the other day for Lacombe Regional Waste that they were saying that a number of our containers, they take a look inside, see plastic bags, they go directly to the landfill. And it's just like a small percentage of what's in there. It's a shame. But I mean, to add number 5 plastics, $7,000 a year, I guess. I agree with Councillor Hoekstra. I don't believe it's going to make much difference. But the EPR program, I understand some communities are single stream. There is no recycle bin. Like they just put it all in one bin and then it goes and gets sorted. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, many curbside recycling programs are like that, and even depot programs. I mean, our bins out there are single, like several of them are single stream recycling. And so we would, when we add number 5 plastics, our proposal is just to say you can now put number 5 plastics into those single stream being.
But I mean, like even the curbside pickup, I understand that some communities are just that. They're just at their house, single stream.
Yeah, most are like that.
So there's not 2 bins, there's just 1 bin for all of the waste. Is that not correct?
Several municipalities have curbside recycling programs that are single stream.
So that includes all of your waste, all of your garbage.
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay. That's what I was getting at, yeah.
No, sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay.
Recycling bins would be single stream, and they would, most that I'm aware of would have a separate bin for waste and even a third bin for compost.
Okay, because there was an indication that that might be the case. It did come up that way, that some of these programs at EPR might be single stream where everything goes in 1 bin and then is sorted later. So, I mean, to me, that makes more sense. And then you get the products that they really want. And there is none of this where you throw it in and it's contaminated and it ends up in the garbage. So, I mean, hopefully that's where this EPR program goes to eventually. To think that we're not paying for it, I think everybody in this room understands that we are paying for it, every individual, through their purchase of the products. So even though it's not going to be on our tax roll, it will be a cost to our citizens and much higher than what we're paying now, I'm afraid. So that's all I have to say. I'm not excited about any of it, to be honest with you.
Councillor Gibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I move that council direct administration to expand the list of eligible materials accepted at Wolf Creek Recycle Depot to include number 5 plastics starting in 2023.
Against self and Councilor Hoekstra. Remainder in favor of. So is passed. Councilor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I also move that council authorize administration to contact our member of Legislative Assembly with a request to advocate for Lacombe to receive a curbside recycling services from the Extended Producer Responsibility Program.
See any other comments? That is up on your machines now. Please go ahead and vote. And that is 1 against, Councillor Hoekstra, and 5 in favor. That is carried. Lost my place here. Was there any other? Not any on that particular topic, though. Senior Manager McKinnon. The next item up is item 6.3, bylaw 503, supplementary assessment bylaw. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor Creasy and Council. This evening, I'm here to present for your consideration the second and third reading of the supplementary assessment bylaw 503. The city levies taxes twice a year. The general levy is in the spring and due on June 30th. The taxation is based on the annual assessments prepared as of December 31st of the previous year. The second levy is for supplementary assessments. If there's new construction or major improvements to existing buildings completed in the calendar year, a supplementary assessment is prepared and for the increase in the property. The supplementary taxes are levied at the end of December with a March 1st due date. Bylaw 503 allows the city to assess improvements after December 31st, 2022. Property taxes are imposed on those properties on a prorated basis for the remainder of the year. New construction raises approximately $40,000 to $70,000 a year in revenue for the city. The motions before council tonight are to give second and third reading to bylaw 503. Thanks for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate that. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would so move that council give second reading to bylaw 503 supplementary assessment.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? And that is on your machines now. Please vote. And I expect that's going to come up all green, and it is unanimous in favor. Thank you. Any appetite for third reading this evening? Councillor Dallas.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah. The motion that council give third reading to bylaw 503 supplementary assessment.
Thank you. And third reading is now on your machines. Please vote. And that is unanimous as well. Thanks, everyone. And next up, the Unlocking Mid-Sized Cities Initiative, item 6.4 for Deputy CAO Lapointe. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy and council. The Alberta Mid-Sized Mayors Caucus, or MCC, requires members pass a resolution, or is requesting members pass a resolution endorsing the Unlocking the Full Potential of Alberta Mid-Sized Cities Initiative. The MCC will use the endorsement to support a submission to the Alberta Community Partnership Grant, and this initiative proposes to encompass 4 phases, including fiscal sustainability, economic impact, mapping the road ahead, and developing a common dashboard. You can see the application will request $400,000 and require an estimated of 30 hours of staff time from its members. Administration is recommending council receive the Unlocking the Full Potential of Alberta's Mid-Sized Cities report as information this evening. With that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I read through this a couple of times and it kept referring to the unique circumstances of mid-sized cities or something along that, the unique characteristics of mid-sized cities, but unless I missed it, what are they? And so why would we do this project? Don't get me wrong, I kind of get the gist of it, but I think that we need a name why we need to do something together.
I'm sorry, Councillor Hoekstra, was there a question in that or?
What are they? What are the unique characteristics of the mid-sized cities?
So I would venture a guess that CAO Gowdy shares the same sentiments, which is why we are accepting the report as information this evening and not endorsing the report or the request.
So if I might add, needless to say, this item has been up for a fair bit of discussion at mid-sized city mayors meetings, and certainly not always unanimous, but it's generally felt that mid-sized cities are underserved, underfunded across the province, given that they represent over 1 million people within our province and supply many of the services that the two major centers do with substantially less funding and opportunities to access grants that they both have. So that's one of the primary drivers. There are many others, but I do not have them in front of me. As Deputy CAO pointed out, I think that CAO Gowdy probably has a more extensive list, but that is a primary driver. And this initiative, certainly.
May I follow up? Thank you. It just says here that we want to recognize the unique needs and interests of the membership of this group. And I guess I would like us to name them. And so anyhow, I mean, Deputy CEO Lapointe has followed up on this, that I just think it needs more we have to elaborate why we need to group together. And I'm not saying it's not real, but it just needs to be more specific.
Fair enough. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I know when I first read this, I too was going like, here's all the, the catchwords and all the phrases that we love to hear. And I was just kind of rolling my eyes a little bit. But then I just went back to it and I looked a little closer at the deliverables in particular. And while I was sort of thinking about those, I'm like, you know what, actually, yes, I can somewhat see the argument for it. So like, for example, I think it's this one here. Let me just double check that. Oh, no, it wasn't that one. Anyways, there was one that just was really going to show evidence, I guess, for lack of a better word, of exactly how mid-sized cities are not appreciated for what it is that they deliver for this province and then for the regions that they serve, like Lacombe, for example. We aren't just Lacombe. We have such an impact on the area around us because we are the main hub for a significant amount of people, and we are just a small city after all. But it is hard for us as an individual city to point to lots of evidence for that. So I can see the power in a group of us working together. So like I said, at first glance, I was just like, on second glance, I think there actually might be something here. The only thing is we're kind of going out on a limb that the product that will come, this report, won't be disappointing, won't be also full of fluffy bits, and that we actually have, answers to questions and actual evidence that causes someone at the province to go, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. We need to change how we do X, Y, Z. I guess I want to see an outcome from the deliverables that actually mean something. So I guess that's my caveat, that I do support the idea, but I definitely say that with some hesitation.
So I think we can suffice it to say that it was felt by the majority at Mid-Sized City Mayors Caucus that this Alberta Community Partnership grant is available specifically for this type of work, and the mid-sized cities are in a position to be able to utilize it, not without some commitment from each of its members, which was outlined here. I think, I believe 30 or 40 hour time commitment from senior administration. And it was the hopes that this substantial ask of the program, $400,000, would take care of the administrative costs so as not to further burden each individual member community. Councillor Hoekstra.
I move that council accepts the Unlocking the Full Potential of Alberta's Mid-Sized Cities Initiatives report as information.
Thank you for that. Councillor Connaught, go ahead.
So in all likelihood, we're going to see this come back then, looking for us to pass the resolution endorsing the grant application, in all likelihood.
To my knowledge, that would not be the case. If the application went forward without council's endorsement and it was supported by the province, the city would then participate on an ongoing basis after the fact.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, it is before you on your machine. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimous. In favor, thank you. Originating on February 3rd, the meeting from February 13th, item 6.5. And Councillor Gullickson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll read the motion and then speak to it, if that's okay. That City Council directs administration to investigate the costs of doing a study on the impact that the vibration of the trains passing through Lacombe at high speeds has on our historic downtown, and return the matter back to council for consideration. So where this came from was some damage that is being done to a historic building downtown that the owner believes is caused partially, if not wholly, by the vibration from the trains because of the increased speed. I mean, some trains have been clocked as high as 90 kilometers an hour through our community. So, I mean, there is a possibility that is true, but until we find out, we don't know if any damage is being caused to these buildings by the vibration of the trains. So this motion was to start that process to find out how much it would cost to do a study, and that may not be reasonable. It may be too high a cost, but at least it's the first step towards that, and to find out what the cost of doing the study would be and what it would involve.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you. I guess I'm curious is why this wouldn't be the building owner's responsibility or their insurance company to investigate the cause of the damage and why it would become the city's responsibility.
Were you directing that inquiry to administration or to anybody in
No, I
particular?
guess I don't know who can answer that really. So that's just one of my concerns with this then.
Certainly a fair question. Thank you. Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, my question would be, you know, let's play devil's advocate, and it could be shown that that is the case. Would we have any sort of tool to affect change on the railway anyways, would be my question to either the mover or to administration. It just feels like railways can do kind of whatever they want within their own operating regulation. And I feel like we wouldn't have any options anyways in this regard. So that would be my question.
Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Further to Councillor Hibbs' comments, I guess that's my question too. What's the end game here? I have no doubt that the trains are causing through vibration damage to those buildings. No doubt whatsoever, but I don't know what a study will do to determine. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think we need to do a study to determine that. I have no doubt the train is doing it. So short of that, then what's the end game here? Is it to try and get the trains to slow down, or because they're going to continue to go through town? So that's my only thing. I don't know what the end game is here on this one.
So I guess for me, I have a few questions with this item. For one, certainly it would be unfortunate if this in fact is true, and it very well could be. However, makes me a little concerned when this came forward from a single business owner. As to why it isn't affecting all of them seems very odd. I expect if it's from downtown, it's from an extremely aged foundation, of which I think you're going to have a hard time convincing any reasonable engineers or lawyers that it's solely due to the railroad. I just don't think, in addition to as troublesome as that is, in addition to it, I'm just not necessarily sure that this is the responsibility of the municipality, which Councillor Dallas alluded to. It's certainly not a great situation for whoever the building owner is, but I just really don't think that this falls under the responsibility of the municipality, in my opinion anyway. Director Thompson?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. The question was asked around what could we do if we knew there was an issue? And there is a informal and formal dispute resolution process that Transport Canada has with railways. It involves the very familiar things that you would expect in terms of negotiating one-on-one, trying to come to resolution, and then escalating it with more and more resources to the point where you both decide you cannot come to terms. Then you can formally appeal to the federal government, well, to the Transport Canada, and initiate a formal process with them. I can say, based on just what I've read in terms of the resolution framework, it would be a multi-year, decades-long, in my opinion, advocacy effort to resolve to reach a resolution that wasn't directly life safety related. But there is a resolution, and that the study could be a first step in that, in establishing some core facts around the vibration situation in Lacombe would provide a baseline from which to launch advocacy efforts in order to perhaps protect the buildings of downtown, in which individually it's difficult for individual building owners to do, but collectively the city could play a role in coalescing the sentiment of building owners who are feeling like they are being negatively harmed by the proximity to the railway.
Director Thompson, I was just curious. The gist of this is to ascertain the cost of a study on the impact that the vibration of the passing trains has. Is that going to have a different cost if it's done for the city of Lacombe as it is for a private individual? Does a private individual not have, is it simply a matter of forwarding the address of whatever firm that would be interested in doing this type of work to our commercial ratepayer and letting them take it from there? Or is there an advantage to having the city inquire as to the cost of the study?
I believe, Mayor Creasy, yeah, the motion is with respect to historic downtown overall. And so it's not specific to a particular business, although the example provided was to a particular business. And so I have to think that bundling it or doing a more widespread study, if you believe that the beneficiaries are all the businesses or building owners along that railway, that bundling it in some way would be cheaper than for them to all individually do the study on their own. But in terms of the actual cost of the study, that's something that we would have to determine should council support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think the goal of this motion is to eventually have the train slow down a little bit, because the feeling was that as they go through this individual that brought this forward could tell you how fast the train was going basically by the vibration in the building. And I think you probably could do that too from your business downtown. So I think that's the ultimate goal. And I know talking to somebody at FCM, another community, they had issues in their community. I think they had a derailment too, which helps a lot. We had one very close to us recently, not too long ago, to slow the trains down going through. So, and I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, but I think the Minister of Transportation federally has the ability to do that, to tell them to slow the trains down in the individual communities, the way this person talked. So, I mean, are we going to get that from this? Possibly not, probably not. But it's another tool, I think, that could be brought forward to slow the trains down, if that's a wish we really do have. I certainly have it after seeing what happened in the States recently with that train derailment. And the one that we had a couple of years ago south of town, I mean, that could have happened right in our community. And it is certainly one of my biggest fears, train derailment inside the city limits. And it's something that we worked on for years when I was with ATCO and did special training on that exact thing just in case it happened. So it is a concern that I have, and I'd like to see the train slow down, and that's what this study would be trying to, ultimate goal would be.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'm a little bit worried that we're sort of deviating from the original point of this, which was to do with vibration. Now, I hate asking stupid questions, but I'm going to do it this time anyways, because I just legitimately don't know. I'm not a physics specialist. So why is it that a faster train would have more of an impact on buildings as opposed to just like, why is speed relevant? Again, my non-physics brain tells me that this heavily weighted train is going through this, land area and it's affecting the surface. So what is it that speed changes in that? Why would that be affecting a building more than just a lower speed?
So I preface this with, I am also not a physicist, but I think you understand it perfectly. The momentum of the train, when it's going faster, has more mass, more momentum, and when it hits something, it just has more energy that's transferring into the ground. And so it's like would you rather have it's simply that. There's more momentum behind the train, so there's more energy transferred into the ground. And so the quicker the train, the more mass it's imparting. And when it slows, every time it hits something, that little imperfection in the ground or thing on the track is kind of attempting to slow it down a little bit. And so it's pushing back harder against that thing the faster it goes. If it's slow, then it's transferring the energy over a longer period of time, and then it turns into it dissipates quicker. My best answer.
We can convince CP to lower the speeds through the community for those very safety concerns which are real. I'm just not necessarily sure that this vibration study is the most effective way to do that. As far as lowering the train speeds and making our community safer, yeah, I'm all for that for sure. Councillor Connick?
And I would agree with that assessment, Mayor Creasy. I think if anything, we should, in concert with whistle cessation, have that conversation about slowing the train down as well. I mean, I think that's the time to do that. So I'm with you on that. I think that's the ultimate end goal, and that's something we should actually, yeah, absolutely push for. I'm not so sure that, yeah, spending money on that on a study on vibration is the way to go, but absolutely push for lower speeds.
Other comments or concerns? I think that we do have that motion on your machines now, so please go ahead and vote. And that item is defeated with 5 not in favor and Councillor Gullickson in favor, as indicated there. Given the outcome of that particular motion, does anyone have any other motions that they would like to have considered at this time? Councillor Connick?
Well, I just have a question. I'm certainly prepared to make a motion, but where are we at in terms of the whistle cessation process? Like, do we need a motion to talk about that in concert with slowing down the trains, or is that something we can do piggyback on the process that's in place now? What do you suggest?
To Councillor Connick, as soon as the improvements, the on-site improvements are completed and then verified to be totally done by CP, we will have to return to council for resolution to provide notice that we intend to proceed with whistle cessation. And so it will return to council for the formal starting of the application process, let's say that. And so council could at that time attach speed conditions, but it's something we would have to explore further to see how that speed element could be effectively attached to the whistle cessation stream. I'm not familiar with that, so we'd have to look into that.
Director Thompson, do we have anything from CP outlining a policy that they have in place for those procedures through communities, specifically ours, as to speed limits, if any, or does it vary throughout the day and night? Any relevant information for that? And if there's any monitoring of the speeds that that they do come through the city at now?
If I could take that away, Mayor Creasy, I do know I'm aware of crossing standards that are specific to each, not standards, but crossing parameters at each one of our at-grade crossings that do speak to the design speeds. I'd have to compile them, and then your second component around, are those speeds monitored by anybody and reported in some way? I'd have to look into that as well.
I think that would be helpful for all of us. I mean, it's one thing to have anecdotal information that the trains are going too fast or exceeding some speed, which they very well may be. I wouldn't know. But I really do not know if there's any kind of an outline in place that they're supposed to follow, or if train speeds are monitored. So that would be very helpful. Anyone else? So we do have a couple of in-camera items. However, prior to that, I think that just go through the next meetings. And we do have 3 listed here, all of which are regular council meetings here at City Hall at 5:30 p.m. on each of the following dates. 2 in March, Monday, March 13th, Monday, March 27th, and then on Tuesday, April 11th. So we can make everyone aware of those 3 pending dates. And then barring me have glossed over any items, I don't think I have. We do have 2 items left under Section 8 in camera. Councillor Dallas.
Motion to go in camera.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And that'll come up on, you can vote now, and it is 7:36 p.m. And that is unanimously in favor. We will take a short 5-minute break and reconvene to these 2 items. We've got the CAO monthly update